Hi, this is Geeks Assembled, and we have been up, up and away, up in space with the Fourth Doctor and Leela. Savage, she's amazing, and just loving this. Today we're doing Requiem for the Rocket Men and Deathmatch, and yeah, it's a Fourth Doctor adventure, and it has to do with the Rocket Men. The Rocket Men are amazing, uh, but uh, we haven't reviewed Fourth Doctor in a while on audio heads, and I think that this is going to be great. And I think that our discussion will be really fun. Let's start off today with Jake because he's really excited and he did choose these. So please,
Yeah.
Jake, open us up.
Last time I listened to Requiem for the Rocket Men was about 5 years ago, so it was nice to revisit it. And my God, did I love both of these stories for their own different reasons. It's very difficult for me not to enjoy John Dorney's story when he gets so much right in his scripts. The banter between the Doctor and the Master is just incredible, and I think that's what he does well. Fourth Doctor banter, any Doctor banter of any of the Masters or companions, John Dorney just does this amazing job, and his stories can be really powerful sometimes. But this is just like a pirate story in space with the Master and the Doctor thrown in. And obviously, everyone in the group knows how much I adore Geoffrey Beevers as the Master because he's so creepy and he's all that sly, and especially in this story of what he's doing. And obviously, near the end, when we find out that when he kidnaps Leela and all that, then Deathmatch, because I'd listened to Deathmatch before. I was worried it wasn't going to follow up because usually whenever a story after John Dorney's story, it's really hard to follow it up if that makes sense. But I probably enjoyed Deathmatch by Matt Fitton that little bit more. I did not expect to cry at that audio, but I did. I found it incredibly emotional in bits, and a big round of applause for Matt Fitton for making me cry about Leela. And what a good character piece for Leela that story was. Both of them are good character stories for Leela. It's sort of the Rocket Men work well with her because they're sort of similar. They come from similar backgrounds, which I think works really well. And obviously, she knows the Master from like the Evil One, Trail of the White Worm, etc. So it builds up on their relationship too. Leela and the Masters, which then gets built up more in what's it called? The Devil You Know in Gallifrey Time War. So it's quite nice to see how their relationship evolves over each story, Leela and the Master, and it's good. I really struggle to fault both of these stories because they're both written by such strong writers and probably two of the best writers to write for the Master.
All right. Well, did you want to say anything more? You okay, good. Let's move to let's go to Lee. Lee, what did you think of Requiem for the Rocket Men and Deathmatch, please?
Well, yeah, two separate stories, but really they're not. I think it's a 4-part story written by two authors. Enjoyable, as Jake said. Geoffrey Beevers as the man, he oozes evil just in his voice. Tom Baker is Tom Baker, as all the time, plays himself. Yeah, this is a Leela piece. It's well written for her, for Louise Jameson. I'm not a big fan of the Rocket Men in other audios, but this one, the work are all right. They're okay in this one, and you don't expect a sort of Leela to fall in love. Well, we didn't expect Leela to fall in love in Invasion of Time, for some that just was dropped on us. But this one sort of built up on it, which I think it was far better written than it was on the TV. Yeah, it's as Jake said, it's like the first half is like pirates in space, all like that, and the second half, as you say, it's like Gladiator. But it's all connected, and what connects it is the Master from beginning to end, and Marshall, the the one who Leela falls in love with, sort of thing. Very, very good, well written, well acted. It's not a lot I can fault with this, but there is a couple of things I'm not so keen on, but I'll get to that later on.
Okay.
Love to hear them.
And let's move down to Texas. Tim, what did you think of these two stories?
I thought they were good. I thought I agree with Jake about John Dorney being one of their best writers. He's also not a bad actor as well. And I think what I liked the most about the first half or the first story was, and they commented this in the behind the scenes, is that they set it up to where, you know, usually the doctor shows up and the master's plan is already happening. In this circumstance, the master shows up and the doctor's plan is already happening anyway. In other words, the audience is 2 steps back throughout the whole story because we don't know what the doctor's really doing, what Leela and K9 are doing, but they're all involved. And in other words, they twist it on its head. They you know, it's a different way of telling the story, whereas usually it's the other way around, where the doctor and company show up and then they have to figure out what the master's doing. I agree with Lee, though. I don't care too much for the Rocket Men. They're okay, though. They're much better in this story, I think, than they were in the previous ones. I think that that they run into one problem, though, with these 2 stories, is that we already know Leela's departure. So while this one is handled much better in the first half, and she gets a much more interesting goodbye, we know that it can't work. We know that by the end of the story, she's going to lose this guy because she has to continue on her adventures that she had on television. So I thought, unless until they picked him up for a few stories and he became a companion or something, which they've done that before. But you kind of know the story's going to end tragically going into the second half. I think that's just a problem when you're making fill-in stories that take place in between other stories. But I agree that she got a much better departure in the first half than she did on television. That's because, you know, on television she kept insisting, I'm not coming back, and they wouldn't listen to her. They didn't really write her out properly. They had to. So, but you know, that's a whole different story for another day. But yeah, this is a pretty effective 4-part story if you count it as one story. I do like the first half better, but I do agree that the second half was pretty good, pretty well handled as well. So I overall enjoyed it.
All right. Well, I'll tell you the story of it. The Rocket Men had been infiltrated by K9, and the king was looking to be a pirate, basically. And that's really, and the Rocket Men are an alien creature that like runs on their jetpacks or their rocket packs. And it's fun because it's kind of like the Rocketeer, but it's kind of like the Mandalorian and stuff. And the king was a bit like C-3PO. He had a little squeaky, and it was fun. And in Deathmatch, it was a bit like Gladiator, but it was a movie that we're going to review this week. It was a bit like Mad Max, but the second one, not the first one, like Mad Max and Thunderdome. And Leela was sort of like Tina Turner's character in that other Mad Max. And yeah, you kind of knew that Maxwell wasn't going to survive. That's sad because she really did fancy him. I mean, she tried not to fancy him, and their relationship was really built up throughout the thing. And I found that there were some incredibly cool moments in that, and I liked Rocket Men when I first heard them with it was Barbara and Ian and Vicky and the First Doctor. That was their first story, and I've only heard that one, but you know, I have a thing about the First Doctor. Anyway, their interaction with the Fourth Doctor was better. It was better than all of their other, than all, I agree with Jake. It was better than their other stories. Well, better than the one that I had heard before. Anyway, um, so my favorite moments were were the relationship building, and I liked I loved how K9 was so crafty, and they'd outfitted the him with propulsion units, like that he was going to use later on as Mark II or whatever. This is, I guess, K9 Mark I, I think. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so those came back later on, and even though he should have used them in probably Brighton Beach or wherever they were that one time. Anyway, like it's just a thing. And John Leeson was great again. Louise Jameson, amazing. Really, really, really acted her socks off in this. And so yeah, that was awesome as well. Over to you, Jake. Favorite moments, please.
Oh, there's so many favourite moments, but my favourite bit is when the whole Doctor's plot's revealed, and the Doctor's like, "Oh, I've come for your gig," sort of thing. Oh my god, it's so fun. The way John Dorney has wrote that scenario, has written the banter between the Doctor and the Master is so funny. I was like, oh, it had me in hysterics. That bit, it was like, "You've come for my gig," sort of thing, wearing masks and all that. I like that bit, and I also like the bit where the Master like kills the Doctor. And he gets all upset about it because he wished he'd have given him a better send-off, sort of thing. And that sort of shows that the Doctor and the Master do kind of love each other in a way, not in like a romantic way, in like a friendship, brotherly way. Deep down, they never actually want to go out and murder each other. They just want to seriously maim or cripple each other instead. But with Don't We All? Anyway, with Deathmatch, my favourite bit is the emotive scene between the Doctor and Leela after, I think he called him Rasmussen. That's because it's the same actor who played Rasmus. And when Mark, what's his name? I forgot it's Marshall.
Marshall, not Maxwell.
Yeah, when Marshall dies, and there's a little scene between them two. And I did find it a little bit funny actually, because she's like, "I'm never going to find love again," and I'm like, don't you literally go off with Andred or whatever his name is in like 5 stories time and live on Gallifrey? I'm like, you get over him quick, sort of thing. But yeah, it's still a really emotive story, and props to both the writers for what they've done. Brilliant acting, brilliant characterisation, brilliant plot, and like what everyone else is about the Rocketmen. I've only listened to them in 2 stories, that being Requiem and their story and Legacy of Time. I much preferred Requiem, because I think Rocketmen only work with a particular Doctor and companion. Because a villain like that, you need to have the yin and yang of Doctor and companion and monster. And I think with a companion that's not Leela, it won't really work very well, because like I said, both similar backgrounds, both warriors, both like to fight. And yeah, but it's really hard to find bit I didn't like, because I'm not going to. The only thing I don't really like is K9. And I even enjoyed him in this story. And I've never been a K9 fan, but I found him quite amusing in this story. But yeah, they're my favourite moments, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The K9 was, I mean, John, it was great. It was really great. So yeah, agreed completely. Glad. Over to you, Lee.
Well, as I said, there were certain things what I wasn't too keen on. The first story, Requiem for the Rocketmen. Was there any? I know it's only a little niggle here, but was there any need for the narration at the beginning from Leela? And was there any need for the narration from Leela at the end of that story? Because it didn't carry on into the next story. I mean, this is one whole story, isn't it? Yeah. But that was just a little niggle. I thought, well, what was the point of that? Also, it has been mentioned, you know, the Doctor being the one pulling the strings, playing the game instead of the Master. That's not the Fourth Doctor. That's the Seventh Doctor. The Fourth Doctor always used to do things by the seats of his pants.
I would beg to differ with you on that, because remember the Invasion of Time.
So
he does the same thing. He does the same thing in the Invasion of Time. He shows up, he knows what's going on, and he doesn't tell Leela or K9. He just, or he tells K9, but he doesn't tell Leela. She doesn't know what's going on.
One
He's
story.
afraid that well, I'm just saying, he has the ability to do that.
I thought it worked quite well with Phil, with his playful personality and the way he's joking about it. He's not like doing it really maliciously like Seven is.
It was well written, but for me, it just didn't feel like the Fourth Doctor. That's what I'm saying. It was just it jarred with me. Kanan, I love Kanan. It was brilliant. I mean, and he even had a rocket launcher installed in him, so that was brilliant. And it also gave, going back to Invasion of Time, gave the excuse to write in this story why he just upped and left with Leela. Stayed with Leela at the Invasion of Time because the Doctor installed that command in him in this story. So, but yeah, I mean, for two authors to write this story, it's very difficult to, you know, figure out who wrote what, because the writing is so good. You thought it'd be one person writing this. So they must have really got their heads together and sat down and wrote out a synopsis on this and said, right, let's go for it, because the writing in this is so brilliantly done. But as I said, there's just those niggles for me personally. But as you say, it's Jeffrey Beavers and Tom Baker were just brilliant in this. Just the backwards and forwards, you know, the banter and all that was brilliantly done. And Louise Jameson, you can't knock her. She's a brilliant woman. Over to you, Sue.
And back to you, Tim.
I would also point out to Lee that that one of the arcs they've had in these box sets or these series, these Fourth Doctor adventures, is Leela's growth as a person. In other words, they've tried to fill that in quite a bit. I think that's why it's not really a narration. It's just a couple. I think it's just kind of her thinking out loud. It's reflecting on the story that's about to be told. So I get your point, and I know you hate narration, but I don't think you could really call it that.
It's all right. I'm gonna say the same thing tomorrow in another certain Doctor Who cast about the beginning of that one with the narration.
Okay. But I would point out too that the effectiveness of the cliffhanger in this story, from the first story to the second, because that's something you would get on TV back in the day that you don't really get with the box set. Now these stories came out monthly back in the day when they came out, because it was before they switched to box sets for these sets, you know. So I mean, we had to wait a month to find out what happened. So that at least the cliffhanger works. It's not like just moving on to the next story in the box set. You know what I mean? So I thought that was one of the most effective things. But I agree with everybody. These are very well written, very well acted. It's great to have all these, like the writers say in the behind the scenes, it's great to have all these toys to play with, because these are like their favorite Doctor's favorite companions and you know, favorite master or whatever. So it all comes together very well at the end, I think.
Yeah, the Doctor and the Master were really, really. I mean, that interplay was great, and their conversations were great, and their threats on each other were great. It was what Jake said when, come on, focus, come on. The way that the Master felt when he killed the Doctor, and there is another Fourth Doctor story called "Kill the Doctor," which you know, I just think that the Fourth Doctor is the attempts on his life are vast and stuff. So anyway. Let's go to an open discussion. Anything else anyone would like to say? Yeah, go, Jake, go.
What I love the Master as well, of all the Fourth Doctor adventures of him in, the Master isn't as desperate yet, because this is obviously all before Keeper of Traken for this Master that's in his timeline. So like, he's not all like stroking Tom's hair and his arm yet. He hasn't got that fetish for that yet. He's not that desperate for the Doctor yet until Keeper of Traken. So he's still the chess player until he gets to desperate, I want to be in the Doctor. Not in that way, but I want the Doctor's body, Keeper of Traken yet. So he's slowly on the descent. You can hear him when he talks. He's kind of cracking a little bit, the Master, so you can tell he's slowly going in a downward spiral into desperation, which obviously after he loses the Tramus body, you get to see a lot more, because he goes up and down, this Master with personality. But he was handled really well in this story. I just think he's creepy, and is he underrated? Yes, he is. He is incredibly underrated. With all the other Masters we've got, no one really talks about him enough. And when you got him in great stories like Dust Breeding, he should kind of be a definitive Master, really, with the amount of good portrayals he's done. But yeah, that's my thought on the story.
Well, go ahead.
Well, he's mostly done more Masters than any of the other Masters on TV now. So, you know, with all the audios he's done. So he'll be up there.
Was this the first time that the tissue compression eliminator was mentioned?
No, the Delgado Master used it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's if he
Do you
was
mean?
first, we're not sure.
Do you mean used by this Master? Do you mean used by his incarnation of the Master, or do you mean used by the Master as a whole for the first time? Because if we're talking about this Master, I think it is the first time he uses the TCE. Please correct me.
No, he uses it in the Deadly Assassin.
Oh yeah, no, before. Because it's oh no, it's after it. Yeah. So ignore me. Yeah, listen to Tim. He knows what he's talking about. I'll get him up his round.
I just don't think it matters because he's used it. I guess every one of them has used it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Delgado in the first story did.
what's that?
Delgado used it in the first story he appeared in, you know, with putting the guy in his lunchbox.
Yeah.
And obviously the Master now uses a TCE, so that's nice, with the same 80 sound effect.
Sasha did end up using it.
There is another thing that I want to pick up on quickly, Master-wise, the Doctor the Master relationship. I do like in every story they do, no matter what the writer, they do build up on it a little bit, because they did it in Dust Breeding, where the Doctor's sorry for the Master because he's lost his Tramus body. We see it in Day of the Master when he's getting killed, again by John Dorney. He's incredibly good at writing very good Master stories. Pat on the back to you, John. You're very good. But yeah, it's another piece of the grand Doctor and Master puzzle. So, and it's a very good addition.
I personally would like to see Jeffrey Beaver's Master face up with some of the other Doctors.
Yes. Big finish with a third Doctor box set.
I know he's done them with the fifth, and he's done
yeah.
7. But he hasn't done the 6th, I don't think.
Tim can correct me again, but I do think we briefly get to hear him pre-crispified in the 2 Masters. Because isn't it the Alex McQueen Master that deforms him in the first place?
Oh,
I don't recall. I don't recall that, but I mean, I know that they've Big Finish has implied, or it may be proven. I mean, it might be fact of their stories that the Ainley Master, who is the one after this one, degenerated back into this one at some point. Is that true?
It's mentioned in Dust Breeding that he gets the Tramus body stripped away.
Yeah. So that's an interesting.
Yeah, and the Doctor's like, I'm so sorry to hear that, even though he's like murdered like a whole ship of people. But hey ho, sorry about your lost body. Not someone's nan who's just been viciously murdered by the Krill, but.
But I do like the design of the Rocket Men, because it does harken back to the Rocketeer, you know, them good old serials back in the 1930s, 40s. The design of them, you know, the flying Rocketeers, and they're a good concept when they're written right and pitted against, as Jake says, the right doctor. Because sometimes it doesn't work.
Yep.
You've got to have the right, what do you call it? The right combination. And this one was the right combination.
Mm.
Which of the fourth Doctor?
Yeah.
They just couldn't cope with that.
Yeah. Both stories are a brilliant mix of humour and darkness. Again, what John Dorney is good at, but so is Mark Fitton. So it's nice, not Mark Fitton, Matt Fitton. So it's nice to see them. They both write very similar, but I just think Dorney's that little bit better at how he does his bantering.
And also, Jake, I am going to put a little black mark against your name in my members book, because you said you're not keen on K9. So that is going to be a little mark against you. So
only good smacked bottom.
The master, the crispy master, really, he was really sly. I liked the way that was put, and I liked the way that he sorted out whether or not K9 was, speaking about K9, how K9 ended up in, being the Doctor's plant. And what a cool way to get K9 really involved in the story than to plant him there ahead of time and then move through. You send your dog out to do the stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. The first time K9 and the Master meet is in this story.
Oh, it is.
Is it?
Great.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what that was.
It's
Oh
true.
yeah, that's true. On TV, K9 joins right after the Doctor meets this Master, and he leaves right before he meets him again. So it's kind of like Sarah Jane and the Master. She never got to meet him either way, because he disappeared before she came and went. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Didn't Sarah Jane meet the Master and the Five Doctors?
Yeah, but she's never seen him before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just mean during her time. I mean, as a companion, because she was there for 3 years, and in other words, Delgado passed the year before she joined the show, or was it the year before? Yeah, and then that the minute she left, they brought back the Master again. So it was just like, okay, coincident.
So time for final say and score, guys. Let's flip the order because I don't want Tim to have to go last. So go ahead, Tim.
Are we rating it as one story or two? I don't know. I like the first half better, just by a little bit, but I'd give the overall thing a 9. It's very, very good story, very well told. It's basically, I think, the centerpiece of the box set, isn't it? Well, I mean,
split them into two. What would you give each number?
10 and 8.
Come on. Okay. So yeah, then let's go to Lee.
As a whole, I'd give it a 9. There's just a few little gripes. As separately, I'd give it a 9 each as well.
That's great. And Jake.
I'm also going to give the whole thing a 9, but individually, I'm going to give Requiem for the Rocketmen a 9 and Deathmatch a 10. Both very enjoyable stories by two very good writers.
Yeah, and I will give Requiem for the Rocketmen. I'll give that an 8.5, and I will give the Deathmatch, aka, come on, focus. There we go. I'll give that one a 9.5 as well. And so average together, it's a 9.5. I really love the send off of of Marshall to that. You know, I have to say when they attempt to actually bring adult relationships into Doctor Who, adult, you know, familial relationships, it's it it's a challenge because you know a lot of it seems to have sort of a childlike, uh, you know, sprinklings of friendships and enemyships, but mostly just. Uh, and so when they build something like this, it is like a beautiful flower in the middle of the show to me. And I love talking about the Fourth Doctor. I just went through and sort of figured out the whole all of his story arcs. I was inspired to do this. Uh, these are all the ones on the of the Fourth Doctor adventure sets, and you know, I was inspired to do that by Jake. Jake was figuring out some stuff on paper, and liked sort of getting in there, and then I did, and then I turned some of it into an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm I'm I want to do more of all of it though. Uh, so thanks for watching. We have a lot of stuff to cover in Audio Heads. We shall be here for a long time. And like and subscribe and hit that bell. Where did the bell go? The bell left again. Anyway, ding, and for our notifications. And join us this week because we are reviewing Mad Max, and we are also reviewing what's the Fourth Doctor one that we're doing, Jake?
The Deadly Assassin.
And who's hosting that, Jake?
I don't know. Is it me?
Okay. Yeah. So please do stay tuned this week for that, and also don't forget to wear your Fourth Doctor scarves because it's going to be grand. Anyhow, would you like a jelly baby?